Welcome to our probably most popular webinar that we do here at LifeWave, which is our, this is the month of April's LifeWave Product Connect. My name is Garrett Johnson. I'm the U.S. Country Manager, and it's my pleasure to be the host on this call with you today. Certainly a very exciting time as we look into what's happening in our world today. But I just want to welcome everyone, and we're so glad that you're here with us today. And so we're so excited that you're here, and we're so excited that we'll be able to have the opportunity to share this with you today. Well, it's my opportunity to introduce our main speaker today, who we all know and love, and that is our CEO, our founder and inventor, David Schmidt. David, are you with us?
Hey, Garrett, great to see you.
Good to see you too. It's really kind of an exciting time of year as we're kind of going into I was going to say spring. It doesn't really feel like spring much here in Utah. We still have snow on the ground, but it really is that kind of a beautiful time of year where we're going into kind of rebirth of everything, and even going into kind of our Easter season coming in this of Holy Week for those that are Christian. And so kind of exciting time, even kind of with regards to our topic today, and the idea of anti-aging and why age, why range. It's kind of a nice time of year to be able to discuss that.
Yeah, years ago, when we came up with this name, it was back in and around between 2006 and 2008, when we were talking about the Y-Age product line. It really started with this idea, well, why do people have to age in the first place, right? As you start to look at the direction, even back then, that things were heading in, it was this idea that we were seeing work which was extending life in mammals by over 30%, 30 to 40%, and in some bacteria, life extension 300, 400%. So it became pretty self-evident even in the early 2000s, that we would see the advent someday of this idea, well, maybe in the future, people would be able to decide whether or not they wanted to age. So that's why we named the product line Why Age. And of course, we've had a lot of fun with that over the years. But now, there's been some new developments as we go almost 20 years later. We are certainly seeing the advent of the day where science is caught up, and even in mainstream, scientists are now predicting that immortality, biological immortality, is within reach. Whether or not that is a good thing remains to be seen. But I think what we could agree is that if we had a society where people were young and healthy, what that would mean is that unless you're in an accident, you would probably never get a disease, chronic disease like cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, these type of things. And so the advantage for our society, of course, is that we could reduce healthcare costs. People could stay healthy and functional much more longer. And this would be an enormous benefit. So, of course, there's challenges in dealing with all of those things, but it's very, very exciting.
Well, and I think the message is getting out there, because when we take a look at kind of the direction that LifeWave is going right now, we continually see month over month some amazing results, coming in with the number of people we're impacting, and the challenge that actually comes in with this size of this type of growth. But it is very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. We continue to get extraordinary testimonials, which is the most fun for me in my work here, to see our membership across the globe benefiting from our products. And of course, we see some extraordinary things along the lines of youth renewal. So I'm going to be talking about that today. When we're talking about looking and feeling younger, there are members that get these youth renewal effects that are nothing short of extraordinary. Some people within a few months, 6 months of using the products, specifically X39, begin to look 10, 20 years younger. So we're going to delve into that in a little bit more detail today, and really take a look at how people age, what are some of the factors to be thinking about here, and ultimately, what's an action plan? What can people do today to get the best results with our products and have the best quality of life possible?
I love that, because especially because the concept of having a kind of an action plan that you can come away with, it's great learning everything, but knowing what to do with it once you're done, I think is super invaluable. So I might just turn the time over to you to kind of just head straight into this, and let's talk about, this. And you mentioned to me actually today how this is one of your favorite topics, the idea of anti-aging. And I think that that's actually says a lot, and it's really exciting. And so certainly this opportunity to be able to hear this from you is invaluable. So I'll turn it over to you, and I'll take a good listen.
Great. Thank you, Garrett. Appreciate that. Well, thank you, everyone. It is awesome that I get to spend some time with you all today, and I'm definitely looking forward to our time together here. As we're getting into this subject of not only anti-aging, but also age reversal, maybe we can start with a simple analogy that will help us to understand really what's going on in the human body as we age. Now, because I'm a guy, I love sports cars. I love all cars, really, but sports cars in particular. And so, when you think about having a car, let's say after you drive it for a while, maybe the engine light comes on. And the engine light will tell you that your car is overheating, or you need oil, right? It's time for an oil change. You could get another indicator light saying that you're low on fuel. But you have systems, electronic systems today in cars that communicate with you about the function of the engine. And of course, what does the engine do in the car? It allows you to move forward. And the engine has to run on fuel. So we're familiar with putting gasoline, diesel, petrol, benzene into automobiles, but that's only part of the equation. The other half of the equation is we need oxygen in the atmosphere to combine with that liquid fuel to make power. So as the car ages, engine performance declines. So this could be carbon buildup in the engine. It could be wearing down of parts as a result of the car getting a little bit older, but we see the performance go down. So if we can clean the engine, replace the worn parts, we can get that car engine to perform better. What does this have to do with the human body? Well, it's probably obvious, but let's talk about it. There is a relationship between how the car is communicating with you and the function of the engine. So in the human body, we're going to get feedback from our cells. We're going to know that if something is wrong with our body or not, based on the feedback. We may get aches and pains, as an example. The engine of our cells is the mitochondria. As we age, the function of the mitochondria will decline, so we don't make as much energy. So that means we're going to slow down and we're going to get more tired and fatigued. But there's things that we can do to repair the function of the mitochondria, replace worn out parts, and optimize the fuel in the mitochondria. And what this will mean is that not only will we have more energy, but we change that feedback mechanism into the body, meaning because the engine is functioning better, our bodies think that our cells are younger and healthier, so the gene expression changes. So in other words, this is a formula for reversing the age of the cells, to get the cells functioning like younger, healthier cells. And it's exciting because it used to be believed that when we're born, we're going to age and then we're going to die. That was always the belief in biology. But now we know that this is not the case, that using epigenetics, we can communicate with the cells and change the way they act and change the way they look and they perform. So exciting times ahead. So let me go ahead and share screen here. And let's first take a jump of 7 years into the future. And this just appeared this past week. We're going to be posting it on our social media. But this was from Ray Kurzweil. I was actually in a book with Ray Kurzweil, and he's a very well-known scientist and futurist. He was, I believe, at one point, chief technology officer at Google, and he has gotten scientific awards from 3 different U.S. presidents. So he's very, very highly regarded. And he's 75 now, but he believes that by 2030, human beings will be able to achieve practical immortality through technology. And this is already based on tech that exists and is advancing. It's the idea that we could inject our body with nanoscale size robots. Today, they're in the 50 nanometer to 100 nanometer range. And these robots can go about and repair damage. Now me personally, because I'm a Star Trek fan, I think of the Borg. And I don't want nanoscale robots in my body, okay? I'm going to respect the body that God created and keep it pure. So I would like to work with the laws of nature here. And we know that in the Bible talks about people having lifespans of hundreds of years old. So in reality, there is a natural means for reversing aging and staying younger longer. We don't have to do it by putting robots in our body. But the point of showing this is that this is now a mainstream idea and a mainstream concept that we're going to be able to reverse aging and extend life for hundreds of years, right? So this is not fringe science that we're talking about anymore. So let's take a look at this. Let's try to break this down and really understand the problem. The way we do that is by first looking at the mitochondria. Now, there have been many different theories and concepts for how the human body is aging. There is the telomere theory, where as the telomeres shorten, they stop dividing, the cells stop dividing, and you can no longer make any new cells. So there's certainly validity with the telomere-based concept of aging. There is a genetic clock theory, meaning that the cells are pre-programmed to die out at a certain time. And then there's still yet other concepts, and it's based around the mitochondria, among many, many other things. But suffice it to say that because the mitochondria are responsible for making energy in the cells, and ATP, amongst other molecules, is a currency that our cells run on. So if we can't make ATP, or the amount of energy that our cells make declines, that's going to have an obvious negative impact on our quality of life. But what we're really saying here is not only does a decrease in energy output from the mitochondria affect quality of life, it also affects the age of the cell. So in other words, if we can improve mitochondrial function, not only can we improve our quality of life, but we can also become younger and healthier in the process. So this article, if you want to have an understanding of the role of the mitochondria in aging, this is a really good basic article to go through that. Now, there would be maybe one simple concept here that I would want to pull out, and it goes back to the analogy of the automobile. When we're putting gasoline or diesel into our cars, we also need oxygen. Human cells are very similar in the sense that we need a fuel. So this would be, proteins, fats, carbohydrates, and oxygen in order to make energy. It's, of course, more complicated than that because we also need enzymes, we need different cofactors, B vitamins, that all facilitate the process of energy exchange in the cells. But the basic idea here is that there needs to be a fuel present, there needs to be oxygen present, and there needs to be antioxidants and a balance between antioxidants and oxygen. So if we want to improve mitochondrial function, we've got to have the right fuel, and we've got to have enough oxygen, and then we need antioxidants to protect this process. Okay. So let's take a look at what could be some of the reasons why our cells are going to age. And one of these reasons here is stress. And this could be a physical or emotional stress. And it's important to know that when we're talking about stress, you could actually have a good stress on the body. We don't normally think about it that way. We normally think of stress as being a bad thing, but to give an example, exercise is a beneficial stress. You can certainly overdo exercise, but generally when we're talking about something like resistance training, and we resistance train several times per week, this is a beneficial stress because it is going to lead to positive changes in our genetic expression. In other words, exercising keeps us physically younger. Another positive stress on the body would be intermittent fasting or calorie restriction. So in other words, if we are reducing the amount of food that we eat, this is a stress on the body, but it causes beneficial changes in our gene expression, and this leads to a longer, healthier life. So when we're talking about stress, we don't want to think of it as completely a negative thing. It can be a positive thing. But in this case, when we're talking about chronic stress and the link to aging, we're obviously talking about this as being a negative thing, right? So if you work long hours, you have stress at home, you have some type of chronic disease, this is going to put your body into a state of chronic stress. And the result of this is that it leads to a prolonged state of elevated levels of inflammation and elevated levels of oxidative stress. And this will in turn damage DNA and damage healthy tissue and will lead to disease. So a very, very important concept here as we're talking about looking and feeling younger is we have to have tools to manage stress on a daily basis. So this can be things like incorporating meditation, getting plenty of sleep, staying hydrated, exercising. These things will help us to manage stress. And of course, we've got LifeWave patches that we'll talk about. But it's important to understand that getting stress in your daily life and not managing it is going to contribute to accelerated aging. No question about it. So here's another article on this subject. It's not a clinical study, but it does refer to some studies on stress and aging. And I just included here in the event that you want to read a little bit more about it. And it also has some tips for managing stress that we've already talked about. So in other words, you plan out and get a good night's sleep, you have a healthy diet, you exercise regularly, meditate. All these things can be used to help manage your stress, right? Okay. Now, let's talk about two things that you can implement. If you're not doing them, you should be. And of course, at LifeWave, we want people to have a healthy diet, exercise, hydrate, take supplements where necessary. In other words, build your foundation. We know that by doing these things, you're not going to reverse aging. But if you don't do these things, you don't have a foundation for reversing aging. So it's very important that you strive to create a program for yourself of exercise, eating healthy, getting plenty of rest, staying well hydrated, and then you're going to get better, much better results out of using the patches. But the quick mention here that I wanted to go through was there's the obvious benefits of exercise, which is you get to maintain and improve your bone density, you improve your strength, your stamina, you look better, you feel better, you reduce your risk of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, but resistance training, so weightlifting, doing body weight exercises, these are all going to have a beneficial change on gene expression. So in other words, the act of regular exercise can influence roughly 78 genes in the body and flip them to a more youthful state. Now we have thousands of genes. So turning on 78 genes through resistance training may not sound like a lot, but it does make a big difference. So this study was really looking at this. What effect would regular exercise have on the DNA? DNA is methylation is a process that regulates DNA. So what benefits would this have? And as this study showed, there is in fact a direct correlation between a lifelong program of exercise and the way that we age. So you exercise, you turn on genes associated with youth. Super important. So that's a tool that you should be using, regular exercise. Now, another tool that you can be using as part of your regular program is something that I love to do, and this is intermittent fasting. It can also be known as time-restricted eating. Now, I personally would rather reduce the window of time that I eat as opposed to counting calories. Both are effective strategies and proven strategies for increasing lifespan. So in other words, the scientific consensus today is that calorie restriction increases lifespan. And there's a number of reasons for that. But you're conserving resources in the cell. So you're conserving your antioxidants, for example. You're not putting as much oxidative stress. Your energy demands on the cell are not as high when you're consuming less calories. So this makes sense why it would extend lifespan. Time-restricted eating or intermittent fasting is where we're going to say that you can only eat within an 8-hour window or a 6-hour window. whichever one you want to choose here. So you might say that you'd skip breakfast. You could have coffee or tea with no sugar or milk, no sweetener, and maybe you're eating between 11 a.m. in the morning and 7 p.m. at night, or whatever window of time works for you. But the idea here is that this is a tool for helping to manage our body composition. We can reduce body fat, have a beneficial improvement on our hormone profile. So for men, for example, that participate in intermittent fasting, the longer that you fast, the higher the testosterone and growth hormone levels go. And we have a positive change on gene expression. So intermittent fasting helps us to look and feel younger, and it doesn't cost anything. It's absolutely free, and it's safe and natural. And here, this is Salk Institute. Look what they found here, that intermittent fasting regulates gene expression across more than 22 regions of the body. So by simply incorporating this tool into your daily life, you're going to reduce your risk of disease and improve your health and your quality of life. Okay, let's keep things moving along here. Let's go over here and take a look at what would be some strategies for reversing the age of the mitochondria. There's surprisingly quite a few things that you can do to achieve this. Exercise is one, intermittent fasting is another. What are some other ways that we can improve mitochondrial function? We've certainly demonstrated that you can do it with LifeWave patches. As a matter of fact, that was one of our very first studies. Dr. Frank Schallenberger, who many of you may know, fantastic guy, and world authority on ozone therapy, which many of you know I'm a huge fan of. And Dr. Schallenberger did a study with our energy patches showing that within 20 minutes of applying the energy patches to the body, we got about a 23% improvement in mitochondrial function. Nutritionally, there's things that you can do here. So this is from Life Extension magazine. And this is, again, a nice article to read. So you get a few different perspectives on this. And here they're talking about using different nutrients like coenzyme Q10, PQQ. PQQ, by the way, will increase the number of mitochondria in the cell. But if you're exercising, you're doing resistance training increases the number of mitochondria in the cell. So you don't need nutrients like this. Not everyone is going to be deficient in coenzyme Q10. It's made in the body. Again, you have a healthy diet that may or may not take care of itself. But regardless, this is an interesting article on mitochondrial theory of aging. So this is for your reference. Okay, let's take another look here. And this has to do with the connection between mitochondrial function and disease. Now, I'm going to be very clear here that we do not make any type of claims about our products treating or preventing disease. The reason I'm bringing this up is that this is work done by Bruce Ames, Dr. Bruce Ames. And one of his discoveries is that the nutrients acetyl L-carnitine and alpha-lipoic acid will rejuvenate the mitochondria. And one of his discoveries was finding that if you took older cells and gave them alpha-lipoic acid and acetyl L-carnitine, you could get them in part to function like younger, healthier cells. There's some limitations to this approach, and X39 is far better than these nutrients in doing that. But this was an early discovery, and it was important because he was showing that it is, in fact, possible to use nutrition to change the way the cells perform. And in the process, by getting the cells to function like younger, healthier cells, it helps to prevent age-related diseases. So, in other words, as our cells age, they become more susceptible to disease. If we can incorporate some of these strategies that we're talking about here and get the mitochondria to function as, and get our cells to function like younger, healthier cells, then we reduce our risk for disease. So Dr. Ames found in this study that using acetyl L-carnitine and alpha lipoic acid was a means to do that. Now, we've got summer coming up, and many of you might be interested in losing a little bit extra body fat. Well, certainly exercise, intermittent fasting is going to help to reshape your body. But I had met a scientist about 20 years ago who is doing work with alpha lipoic acid. And another benefit to this is that it helps to balance out blood sugar. So you take this nutrient, 400 milligrams, 3 or 4 times a day, and it will balance out your blood sugar, and that has an effect of reducing body fat. So for those of you that, as we've got summer coming up, you want to reduce a little bit extra body fat, this is a way to support that goal. Okay. Now, let's talk about another study over here. Again, this is looking at the mitochondrial theory of aging. In the interest of time, we're not going to go through this. And again, actually, I showed you this a little bit earlier, so let me close that out. Okay. Let's go a little bit further now and talk about the subject of life extension and age reversal and how we might get there. And what type of evidence do we have that this might be possible? Well, let's start with glutathione. Glutathione is the body's master antioxidant. It's found in nearly every cell. It helps to regulate oxidative stress and inflammation in the body. And studies, thousands of studies on glutathione to show its safety and efficacy. And one of the things we know now is that how long you live is directly correlated to the body's levels of glutathione. So it must be very important. In fact, people that live to be over the age of 100 have elevated levels of glutathione. So why is this? Well, let's go back again and look at the example of how our cells make energy. We take in fuel, so that's our food, our proteins, fats, carbohydrates. We combine it with the air that we breathe, the oxygen. This makes energy, and in the process of making energy, we generate oxidative chemicals. If we don't have antioxidants to neutralize those waste products from metabolism, those oxidative chemicals will damage the cells. Not surprisingly, it's been found that glutathione will protect the DNA from damage. So if you keep your glutathione levels elevated, not only will it protect your cells and your DNA from damage, it can actually repair and trigger repair of the DNA before the cells divide. So glutathione is incredibly important. Post-pandemic, we have learned that taking the supplement NAC, N-acetylcysteine, which is a precursor to glutathione, is effective at reducing the symptoms of COVID-19. So even though we're out of the pandemic, it would be important to remember that if you are not having a diet rich in cysteine. So if you don't have eggs or dairy products or meat products as a regular part of your diet, you may want to include an NAC supplement to make sure that you're getting the precursor molecule that you need to make glutathione. Now, if you take an NAC supplement, you may see a 14% increase in glutathione. You take it twice a day, you'll get a 40% increase in glutathione. Use our patches, totally different story. You're up at 200-300%. And we'll look at that in a little bit. But what's exciting about this information is that this is a study showing that here is a way in mammals that we can extend life. 24% is awfully good. You know, if you were going to live to be 100 and you could get an extra 24 years of life, I think most of us would take that. Carnosine is shown to improve lifespan by 30 to 40%. So now, would that mean that we would extend our lifespan by 50%? You know, who knows? These are relatively new tools, and so we don't know if it's going to translate that way. But certainly, these are inexpensive ways and things that we can do in our daily life that are known to improve our health, improve our immune function, improve our strength, stamina, and cognition, and potentially have an impact on how long we live and the quality of our life. So this would be a good study to check out, or a good article to check out. Now, not surprisingly, glutathione has a role when it comes to the mitochondria. So in my work on age reversal, I look at a few things. One thing is I want to understand exactly how glutathione is affecting the mitochondria, and then I also look at other molecules like nitric oxide and oxygen and ozone. So in other words, if we're increasing glutathione, increasing nitric oxide, increasing oxygen levels, is that going to have a beneficial effect on gene expression? Meaning, can we use this as a mechanism, along with other things, light therapy, to drive a beneficial change in gene expression and regulate some of these positive and negative feedback loops? So let me explain this just for a second. If you're elevating your glutathione and you're elevating the amount of energy that you have in the cell, but then you don't have enough oxygen, you're going to have a negative feedback loop, meaning that the mitochondria is going to shut down because you can't give it enough oxygen to increase energy. This would be like somebody puts a potato in the tailpipe of your engine, and now the engine begins to choke. It could work the other way too. Let's say that you've got plenty of oxygen, but you don't have enough glutathione. Well, again, you get into a negative feedback loop. The cell says, well, wait a minute, I can't make enough energy because all of this energy production is damaging the cells. I've got to shut down energy. So we've got to have glutathione and oxygen levels in balance to have proper mitochondrial health. So that's why this is important. But this is a good study because it shows this relationship. And again, it shows the role of glutathione protecting the mitochondria and this having some very long-term benefits. Okay. Now we're going to come to another nutrient here, which is carnosine. And I often think of carnosine as being the one nutrient that most people are not using or taking, and that can have one of the most powerful effects on the body. Especially here in America and also in Mexico, diabetes is a terrible problem. And this, of course, is because of elevated levels of blood sugar, which damage the nerves and damage cells. This is called glycation. Carnosine is the most powerful natural anti-glycation nutrient that's been found. In other words, it protects the cells from the damage of high blood sugar levels, and is even used as a method, along with glutathione, to get blood sugar under control. Now, what got me interested in carnosine back in 2006 was that studies were coming out showing that carnosine could increase lifespan in mice by 30 to 40%. Incredibly, the mice never aged until the very, very end of their lives. So imagine how exciting this is. Let's say you could live to be 140 years old and not start aging until you were 135. I think most of us love that idea, right? So carnosine was found to protect the telomeres from shortening. Now, the carnosine is a dipeptide. It's made of alanine and histidine. And beta-alanine supplements, which support carnosine levels, are very inexpensive. So in other words, if you're not getting beta-alanine is found in red meat. So if you don't have red meat in your diet, I'd recommend you take a beta-alanine supplement. 500 milligrams to a gram per day is fine. And use that with our carnosine patch. We have clinical studies I'm going to get into in just a minute here that show the benefits of our carnosine patch. But the great thing here is we get immediate benefits from using carnosine. It improves cognitive function, improves strength and stamina, endurance, grip strength. And as a result, we get this immediate benefit, but yet there is this long-term anti-aging benefit. So this is another really good article if you want to read about the function of carnosine in our bodies, its role in life extension. Okay, now, of course, on our LifeWave website, this is our new website. So if you go over to product research, you can scroll down and you can see clinical studies. There are a few errors here as we were migrating over to the new site, and those errors are being corrected. So if you find that you click on something and the correct study's not there, that is being corrected. Okay, so here's one of the studies that we did on carnosine. And this was a really interesting study that we did with Dr. Sherry Greenberg and Dr. Homer Nazaran. And we used a technique called electrointerstitial scanning. And basically what we wanted to find out, we did several studies like this. We wanted to find out over a period of 2 weeks and then over a period of 30 days, what would happen with people using the carnosine patch. Could we validate that there would be a short-term benefit and also an indication that there was a long-term anti-aging benefit? And that's exactly what we found with this technique. The results showed a highly significant improvement in the physiologic functional status of the organs. And so you can see the p-values here, 0.001 and 0.01. So in summary, as you can read here, that the hypothesis that the carnosine patch would improve the function of the organs was true. So needless to say, this would be and this happened very quickly. It happened within 2 weeks. So this was a very important indicator in looking at, what a person could expect from elevating carnosine over a short period of time, and then how we might use that data to predict what would happen over a longer period of time. Now, another patch we haven't spent a lot of time talking about, but it's going to go back to something we talked about earlier, and that is the EON patch. Now, right at the beginning of this presentation, we spoke about the importance of managing stress, that there could be positive stress on the body in the form of exercise or intermittent fasting, but chronic stress, whether or not that be emotional stress, working long hours, disease, this is going to elevate inflammatory chemicals, elevate oxidative chemicals, and that's going to cause damage to our DNA and to healthy tissue and cause premature aging. So we have to have tools and techniques to get stress under control. So one of the things that we found, we worked with Doctors Tom and Helen Budzinski. This was an early study that we did on EON. It was called the X15 patch back then, but we in fact found that the EON patch would reduce stress. Here's another study that we did. This one was published, and again, it was on the EON patch and on the autonomic nervous system. And again, in the interest of time, the hypothesis that wearing the EON patch for 20 minutes reduces stress was accepted as true. So here we have another study, again, supporting the first study that we did, showing that if you wear the EON patch, it puts your nervous system into a state of balance, and this is going to help you deal with stress in your daily life. So if we can manage stress, that's going to be an important step forward in helping to protect our health and, of course, protect long-term what kind of results we might get from an anti-aging age reversal program. Come back to this one in just a moment. Now, we did, back in 2005, we started doing some studies on the glutathione patch, and we've already covered the importance of elevating glutathione. And I do recommend that if you don't have your diet in check, that you should take an NAC supplement so you have enough cysteine in your diet. But what we found in our internal investigations by doing blood studies and urine studies was that in the urine studies, the amount of heavy metals that were removed from the body increased. So in other words, you wear the glutathione patch and the amount of mercury that comes out of your body increases. You wear the glutathione patch and the glutathione levels go up. We could see here in this study, if we look at the baseline, some people got crazy good results. You went from 1939 to 10,000, and 10,000 was the top level on the equipment. So many people here experienced increases of 200, 300% just within the first day of wearing the glutathione patch. So far more than you could get with a supplement. Here's another study that we did with Dr. Lisa Tully. And again, this study showed that LifeWave patch increases levels of glutathione. So again, this would be an important way that you could detoxify and keep your body's levels of glutathione elevated. And this has an important long-term effect on the way we age. And eventually, of course, we want to pave a path to age reversal. So, Garrett, I'm going to stop at a minute. Because I know we probably have some questions, and we have another few minutes here where we can take some questions. So let me turn it over to you, and what's on people's minds.
Yeah, great information. And I think it's what we're finding is a lot of the things that you're sharing. I think with regards to the patches, they understand a lot of it. They have some questions specific around maybe some of the areas that they don't know as well. So one of the questions we have is how many times a week should you intermittent fast?
Well, intermittent fasting is a lifestyle, and that is going to depend on whether or not a person is a man or a woman. Okay. And don't ask me about, transgenders, because number one, I don't know if there's any clinical data on that, but I'm going to be talking about biological men and biological females. The stress response to intermittent fasting is very different for a biological male or a biological female. With men, they respond quite favorably. In other words, there's studies that show if men fast for 24 hours, which I'm not saying you have to, growth hormone levels go up 2,000%. And the net end effect of this is, and you can see how, we're programmed for this. Men were traditionally the ones that were going to go out and hunt, get food, bring it back. And so we might have to go for long times without food. And the response to that was crank up energy production, turn on the hormones, the mechanisms for converting fat over into energy and increasing lean muscle mass. So you can imagine that, cavemen were probably very lean and muscular because of this. Women, on the other hand, don't do as well with intermittent fasting, and I would only recommend that they fast maybe 1 or 2 days a week, maybe 3 days per week. They could do even a 24-hour fast once a month. That might be okay. With men, you can do it every day if you want. Really up to you. I think that, what works for me as a tool is to practice intermittent fasting 5-6 days a week and then take Sundays off. I like to go have breakfast with my kids and just not think about it. And I like to get into a 5 or 6 hour eating window. I find that my testosterone and growth hormone levels do phenomenally well when I'm in that 5 or 6 hour window. 8 hours is easy for me at this point. So I would say, everybody's a little bit different. Their health circumstances are different. Work with a doctor, but there's a lot of flexibility in how you deal with this. Perfect.
And how often would you recommend? Because another thing that you talked about was resistance training and the benefits that comes from that. Do you have a recommendation on how often or any types of resistance training that you find beneficial?
Well, I mean, we could certainly have a 1 hour discussion on this, and it really depends on what a person's goals are. So a person that's a UFC fighter or a bodybuilder is going to have a very, very different regimen than, let's say, someone that's 60 that simply wants to maintain their lean muscles. So first, let's frame it that way. It depends on what the goal is. Is someone a competition athlete, or they just want to stay healthy? So my best recommendation is that it should be something that a person enjoys and they can stay with. So let's say that someone is 60, they haven't exercised in a while, and they want to get on a program. I would say in that case, it should be a very limited amount of exercise, maybe 10 minutes, 3 or 4 days a week. So it's something brief, maybe intense, not so intense that they're going to have a health problem, but very, very brief. And so the important thing then is that then a person is more likely to stay on the program. And then as you go and you get better at it, you enjoy it and embrace it as a lifestyle, then you can start looking at increasing the amount of time, that you do it. So it's there's a lot more information there. At convention, I usually present entire programs that people can follow in this regard. But the main thing is a person should enjoy it. And if they're just getting back into exercise, keep it brief so that you're more likely to stay with it.
I like that. And the concept of enjoying it. All too often we try to do something that we just don't really enjoy, and it's really hard to stick with it. But when you find something you do enjoy, it makes it a lot easier. One of the things, one question we've had a couple of times, and I'm going to tie 2 of the patches together because they seem to be the same kind of question. That is, with regards to the glutathione and carnosine patches, how often should you wear them? And is there a specific spot on the body that works better for longevity?
Yeah, so, that's an interesting subject. Well, first of all, when we do our clinical studies, we generally put the patches either behind the neck or below the belly button, and we find that people get effects. So one thing that I wouldn't want our community to get, worry about is that you're going to get results regardless of where you apply the product. So you follow the instructions, you'll get results. Now, the subject of where is the best place to put it for longevity, that's a really interesting question because if you look at acupuncture and the acupuncture points on the body, there's definitely points that are associated with longevity. So as an example, the acupuncture point stomach 36, it's located 4 finger widths below the kneecap. That is one of the most well-known points for extending lifespan. Kidney 1, which is on the bottom of the foot, we recommend that point. That probably has an effect on the stem cells in the bone marrow. And in Eastern medicine, it would be known as bone marrow washing. But there's probably longevity effects of wearing patches on the bottom of the feet. And then the third one, again, this could be a very, very long discussion. Another one would be large intestine 4, and that's located up here on the hand. That is also found to be a very, very powerful point associated with the health of the immune system, which of course is going to have an effect on the way we age. So again, people don't have to get really hung up on where they apply the patches, but there are points on the body definitely associated with longevity.
Love that. And I'm taking some good notes as well, because there's so much good information. Well, David, we're really coming up on right on the top of the hour. Is there anything else you'd like to kind of finish up with as we close up this training?
Yeah, I think what I'd say is the important thing here is that a person create a written plan. So you take into account, what is your daily schedule like? Are you going to exercise in the morning or at night? Plan what type of health program you're going to have. What foods are you eating and why? What time are you going to start eating? Are you going to practice intermittent fasting or another tool like this? Which patches are you using from day to day and why? The important thing is to have a plan and to write it down. Even, use your smartphone, put things into your calendar so you'll have reminders that, okay, I'm supposed to exercise today. This is what I'm supposed to do. Because if it's not written down, the odds are you're going to forget about it and not commit to it. So writing down, creating a plan, and then committing is super important. And, you don't have to do everything at once, but starting to incorporate some of these different tools that we've talked about today is really important, and will start to get people on their way. But what's so exciting about this is that there are so many tools like the patches and fasting and resistance training that make not small, but dramatic improvements in people's health.
I love that. And I think just taking those little steps every day, I know that's something Darren Hardy always talks about. Consistency over time is what really changes everything. And so sticking with the plan, writing it down is, I think, super important. And so thanks for sharing that. Certainly been a fantastic time spending this with you, as well as with everyone else in the car. Thank you all for being here. And we look forward to catching up with all of you very soon. Thanks.
Thanks, Garrett.